Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
You may be seated. Thank you, the Most High God. I am your substitute teacher for the day. Mr. Lewi. What's your name? Thanking the Most High God for life. Hoping that the Most High God gets today's Chief Kohath's turn, but he's not feeling well. So let's all keep Chief Kohath in our prayers. That the Most High God will bless you, Chief. He continue to strengthen you. You know, you still got a lot left. So let's get well and keep walking and make it to 125. So let's stay strong. Amen. Thank you, the Creator of heaven and earth, for life, food, clothing, and shelter once again, and for all of us that are here. We're going to get straight to it. We're going to the book of Exodus, chapter 21. The portion is Mishpatim, which was already explained by Moreh Arania this morning. So let's get straight to it.
We're in the book of Exodus, chapter 21, verse 1. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Now these are the ordinances which thou shalt set before them. If thou buy a Hebrew servant, 6 years he shall serve, and in the 7th he shall go out free for nothing. So we see from the previous chapters, Moses told the people to get ready against 3 days, so that they will be prepared to come before the Creator. Right. And after the Creator gave those 10 words, the people told Moses, they said, Moses, it's better that you talk to God, right, rather than us talk to him, because he's going to kill us. Right? So now Moses, this is the next phase. Moses is now talking to the Creator, and the Creator is giving Moses instructions on how to deal with things, because we just came out of a place where we were servants, and we were just servants under the Egyptian rule, with no rules, no regulations. You were just servants to the throne of Pharaoh. So the Most High God said, we're going to regulate this, and we're going to put some rules and some regulations, because your minds have been corrupted. So when you have a servant, right, a Hebrew servant, which is specific, he should serve you for only 6 years. It said in the 7th year, he shall go free. Now, every 7 years, the land gets a sabbatical. Right. This is part of the cycle of the land of Israel. So think about it in this term. Sometimes we work so many weeks out of the year. People work so many weeks out of the year without taking vacation. Just imagine having a whole year vacation. Basically, you're not working the land. You're not doing anything. It's just the Most High will bless you in the 6th year with enough grain for the 7th and the 8th year. Right. So that's how our structure was set up. So with the servant, it was like you work for 6 years, but in the 7th year, especially a Hebrew servant, he goes out free, because we don't own any Hebrew in perpetuity. That's a law. You can't. God is telling us that you cannot own anyone in perpetuity. Let us go.
Verse 3. If he come in by himself, he shall go out by himself. If he be married, then his wife shall go out with him.
So if he come in by himself, he go out by himself. If he comes with his wife, he leaves with his wife. That's simple. Let's go.
If his master give him a wife, and she bear him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her masters, and he shall go out by himself.
So now this is where it gets a little tricky, because naturally you come into a place, you meet a woman, or the master gives you one of his servants to be your wife. So whatever comes out of her is his. It was born in his house. You're a Hebrew. Right. So now, does the law of release come for your children because they are Hebrews also? You see, these are things that's why it says if a matter be too hard, that you present things to the judges, and the judges will judge for certain things, because any seed that's born out of that is a Hebrew seed or Israelite seed. So at some point, there has to be some type of release, because you cannot own an Israelite in perpetuity. Even after we read this law, I'm going to show you how you still can be a servant to a house forever as a Hebrew. Let's go.
But if the servant shall plainly say, I love my master, my wife, and my children. I will not go out free. Then his master shall bring him unto God, and shall bring him to the door, or unto the doorpost, and his master shall bore his ear through with an awl, and he shall serve him forever.
I used to have a teacher that said, nowhere in the book it said you got to love your wife. He used to say that. But, but the servant is saying, I love my wife. No, first he said, I love my master, which is foreign because most people do not love their master. Most people don't love their bosses. They're like, man, if I could just, man. Most people don't love their bosses, but obviously this master was dealing fairly with this servant. So he said, I love my master, I love my wife, and I love my children. And I don't want to leave this house. It says that the master or the owner of the property will take him to the doorpost, will put his ear to the doorpost, and he shall put a hole in it with something that looks like an ice pick. That's what an owl is. Something that looks like it's a carpenter's tool that looks like a ice pick, right? Boom. It says now he becomes a servant to that house forever. But that forever is to a period of time. Because in the Yovel, in the year of release, everything goes back. Everything goes free. That means servants too. So when that 49th and that 50th year, the year of release come, everything goes back. That means if somebody sold you their land, right? Because the Most High God divided the lands according to the tribes. But if someone falls into hardship and they sell you their land, you don't keep that land forever. That land is Yehuda. You are Ephraimite. You can't keep Judite land forever. So everybody goes back to their land, and everybody goes back to where they belong from or to. So at this point, and then sometimes when you get to servants, right, people sell themselves to people, or let's say it's more like an indentured servant, right? You're getting paid and you're doing certain things, but sometimes you don't have skills. So you might have a bunch of land and you don't have the skills to work it. So you go work with someone to gain the skills so that when that release comes, guess what? When you go back to your land, what can you do now? You could work it. You got the skills to work it. So a lot of times we see things when we see servant and servitude, and we think it just as slavery, but just think of it of working for a boss. Moray Aranya has an electrical company. He had people that work underneath him. You have a company. You have people that work underneath you, Brother Amal. So just think of it, servants that work underneath you or just workers that work underneath you, right? Because this is a Hebrew servant. This is not someone that you bought from captivity, a foreigner, or anything of that nature. This is something totally different. This is a Hebrew servant, and there's specific rules to how you deal with a Hebrew servant. Let's go.
Verse 7. And if a man shall sell his daughter to be a maidservant, she shall not go out as the men servants do.
So I got a question. So according to the laws of the servant, did Laban have a point when he said, the women are mine, the children are mine, it's all mine? Did Laban have a point? That's something for you to ponder, think about. Did he have a point? Because remember, Yaakov broke out. And when Laban approached him, he said, the women are mine, the children are mine, everything is mine. So just think about it. Think about your answer, and then we'll talk about it later. So it says, and if a man sell his daughter to be a maidservant, she shall not go out as men servants do. So this is a little bit tricky because today no one is selling their daughters. We can't even think, that's a foreign thing for us in captivity in America, for you to take your precious daughter and say, I'm going to sell her to you. But guess what? Some parts of the world, they're still practicing this. Go to India, you go to certain parts of Saudi Arabia, people sell their daughters. If you owe a debt, or if you owe someone money, someone might come to you and say, let me get your daughter. She's going to come work for me. right? Or you might have to sell yourself to pay off that debt. But, you know, the law might seem like, people might say it seems like it's barbaric, but these are regulations that God put in place for people that had no rules. Remember, we just coming out of Egypt. So the Most High had to put things in place in order for us to govern ourselves so that when we go into the land of Canaan, we wouldn't be all over the place. Today, we don't practice this. You know, thank God that we don't practice this at this moment, because there'll be a lot of crying daughters. You know, there'll be a lot of crying parents too. But this is the rule and the regulation for if a man sells his daughter. Let's go.
If she please not her master who hath espoused her to himself, then shall he let her be redeemed. To sell her unto a foreign people he shall have no power, seeing he hath dealt deceitfully with her. And if he espouse her unto his son, he shall deal with her after the manner of daughters. If he take him another wife, her food, her raiment, and her conjugal right shall he not diminish. And if he do not these three unto her, then shall she go out for nothing without money.
So the woman servant don't go out as man servant, meaning like the man waits, he works for 6 years, then 7 he goes. So if the master takes her with the intentions of in the future marrying her, then he has to deal with her as such, right? But if at some point he don't like what he see, he just she can't be ravished, you can't be going into her, you can't. Espouse means you're courting. That means that you're going through a process of getting to know a person without touching them. It's a courting process. So that girl can't be passed around in the house because you got money, and because you have money when Cousin Joe come over, Cousin Joe sleeps with this girl, right? Or when your brother comes over, he sleeps with this girl. No, that's why God is protecting the young maiden and saying, if you don't want her, and maybe you want to give her to your son, then you have to deal with her as a daughter. You can't deal with her as the slave girl or the servant girl that gets passed around. This is why they have laws in the book about if you got subordinates underneath you, like bosses, right? If you sit in a high position, and we all have training, like if you have a woman that works underneath you, you can't make her feel as if, or make her think that as if her job hangs on whether or not she lays down with you. You can't do that. That's a automatic HR, and you go what they call sexual harassment, and you're gonna get fired. So think about it in the same sense, like God is telling the master, hey, when you bring this girl in, it's not a free-for-all. You're either gonna deal with her as your future wife, or you're gonna deal with her as a future wife for your child, for your son. And because she came in under those conditions of being a servant, that when you marry her and you're giving her this amount of food, you're knocking it off this amount of times during the week, you're giving her raiment and clothing and all that. If you decide to take another wife, that you cannot diminish any of what you were doing with her for that period of time. So that means if you was 3-4 times a week with her, says you can't diminish. That means you have to satisfy her 3-4 times a week. You got to continue in that vein. And if you can't continue to do that, guess what she has the freedom to do? Leave. Because she's coming under a condition, she's coming under a humbling condition, rather than just like someone went and paid a dowry for her and had this whole... She came as a servant. So God even thinks about the servant girl that comes and might feel like she's less than. God says she's not less than. You have to treat her fairly. You have to show her love and respect and all those things. Because God thinks about the small and the big. He thinks about all his people. Not only men, he thinks about women.
Right.
So we keep that in mind. Let's go.
Verse 12. He that smiteth a man so that he dieth shall surely be put to death.
What is that called? You smite a man that he died. What is that called?
Murder.
Murder. So you murder someone, guess what? You lose your life. That's simple. I don't have to go into a big explanation about that. Let's go.
And if a man lie not in wait, but Yah cause it to come to hand, then I will appoint thee a place whither he may flee.
So we see later in the history where it actually gives an explanation that if a man is chopping down a tree and the axe handle breaks off from the axe itself, the head, and it strikes a man and kills him, right? That's naturally an accident. But when this accident happens, you have to get into a city of refuge. And then they're going to judge and determine that, hey, this was an accident and that this man should not be put to death for this person losing their life. But he has to stay in there until the high priest dies. So later in the law, we will begin to get more of a detail of what the law means and what it signifies. Let's go.
And if a man come presumptuously upon his neighbor to slay him with guile, thou shalt take him from mine altar that he may die.
Who was taken from God's altar, or who was killed on God's altar, holding on to the horns of the altar? Anybody remembers? Joab. Right? So that was an example in the Tanakh that BINAH came to Solomon and said, hey man, he's holding on to the horns of the altar. What you want me? You told me to kill him, but I can't. Am I supposed to kill him there? Solomon said, yes, kill him right there. So God is saying that there is nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. You can't find refuge anywhere if you commit murder. If you wait and you sneakily wait for your neighbor or your brother or your sister and you murder them, and said if they go into a holy place, kill them right there. Because there's ways to sanctify and make the place clean again. Let's go.
And he that smiteth his father or his mother shall be surely put to death.
You put your hands on your parents, you die.
That's it.
There's no other way. I don't care what your mother is, what your father is. Walk, leave. Keep walking out. You can have the worst parents in the world. I'm not saying that you might not have the worst parents in the world. Sometimes that's the cause that we're dealt. I'm not saying that every parent is perfect, but nowhere do you have the right to ever put your hands on your parents. So make your escape, get out of Dodge before you feel like you have to do anything like that. And for those that might have done this before you came into this way of life, I will tell you this: repent before the Creator and ask God for forgiveness, because I don't know who God is going to be merciful to. He could be merciful to you. Because I know that people have done things before they came into this way of life that they might regret doing, and you have these things riding you because now you're hearing Torah, and Torah feels like it's dragging you down, beating you down. But this is a God of forgiveness, right? This is a God that calls you to repent and walk in through these doors so that you will be able to hear this. So if you in your former life ever put your hands on your parents, on your mother, on your father, humble yourself, go before your mother and your father and apologize. Apologize to them. Say, you know, I wasn't in my right state of mind. I know God now, and I pray and I hope that you will forgive me for what I've done. This is part of growing up and part of life and all these things. I know that a lot of us, you know, that weren't born in this way of life didn't understand certain things. But now we do understand them. So when you do, you make it right and you hope that God will bless you and forgive you. Let's go.
And he that stealeth a man and selleth him, or if he be found in his hand, he shall surely be put to death.
No kidnapping. You can't kidnap any of the people of the Most High God. If you sell the person, like today, what's running rampant is that they stealing a lot of these young girls, kidnapping them, and they selling them as sex slaves. So we have to be careful with our daughters. We have to be careful with our young daughters, who they talk to, who they communicate with, who they talking to on the internet, what they're doing on those phones. You have to be on top of it. There is no secret. Who are you talking to? Because you don't know where they could be drawn to. You don't know where they could be taken to. I mean, they snatch girls right out of the streets.
That's right.
So we have to be vigilant with our children and where they're going, who they're hanging with. Someone could be luring them into a place that's supposed to be their friends, and next thing you know, both of them get kidnapped.
That's a fact.
So these are things that we have to keep in mind, because you see more and more missing pictures of girls.
Boys too.
Boys too. They stealing boys. That's what the chief prince said. Let us go.
And he that curseth his father or his mother shall surely be put to death.
So cursing is like you wishing harm upon them. You are belittling them, and you're talking down on your parents, or you're saying, I hope that this happens to them, or I hope that that happens to it. And if you're using these 4-letter words on your parents, also, that is a disrespect, and you deserve to die. So you see how the Most High looks at parents and how we're supposed to revere them?
High regard, that's right.
So even if your parent has done something that's worthy of death, the most you could do is just separate yourself. And we find examples of that in the Torah, right? When it says the sons of when Moses said Korah, right? It says everybody that was on Korah's side, that said the earth opened up her mouth and swallowed them. But later in the history, we see that Korah's sons are still alive. That means at some point they said, Abi is wrong. I'm on God's side. So, yes, sometimes your parents are out of line and you could separate yourself from them. That's not disrespect. That's giving glory to the Most High God. But if your parents haven't done anything like that to you, and your parents are, because they talking harsh to you, or because they might be tougher than, that don't give you rights to raise up on your parents and talk junk and disrespect them and make them feel like they less than. The minute Marvin Gaye put his hands on his father, what happened to him? And he waited for the police. So you can't put your hands on your parents, and you can't raise up on your parents thinking that you could overpower them because they got old. They old now. You know, you can't do that. Let's go.
And if men contend, and one smite the other with the stone or with his fist, and he die not, but keep his bed, if he rise again and walk abroad upon his staff, then shall he that smote him be quit. Only he shall pay for the loss of his time, and shall cause him to be thoroughly healed.
And cause him to be thoroughly healed. So, men fight, but there's consequences for fight. There's consequences for fighting, or there's a consequence for fighting. So God said, y'all can fight if you want to, you know. But if a person gets hurt, then the person who hurt them has to make good for that person who got hurt. Meaning that if they miss time, the man might have came up limping, he can't work for a month. Guess what? You got to pay his wages for a month. The woman, two women get into a fight, the law go for both. They get into a fight, the other one can't work for a couple of weeks. Guess what? You got to pay her salary for a couple of weeks. Why? Because God is telling us to keep our hands off of each other. So if somebody, it's almost like the rules they have in the NBA. The NBA, even if the guy who starts the fight and you retaliate, you're both getting suspended, because they don't want a league of vigilantes. God doesn't want a society of vigilantes. Yes, somebody might have hit you, but they didn't cause you like that kind of harm, or that you might go too far.
Right.
He said, you know, you got people that say, yeah, you could start it, but I'm going to finish it. And the finish is way worse than what you received initially. So you have to be measured. So even if you're going to fight, you can't go but so far. Because if you knock somebody out, right? Let's say you knock somebody out. Boxing rules is this. When somebody's get KO'd, where you see them sleeping night, and they snoring, it says 60 days. He's denied the medical office denies that boxer 60 days a license to box. Why? Because the brain is jarred. So if you can knock a brother out, he gets back up, but he's having headaches, he's having all types of stuff for a long time. He can't work. Guess what? You got to take care of that brother for that amount of time. So God said, if you want to fight, you can fight. I know that you know the testosterone level raises up sometime, and you feel like you could put your hands on an Israelite and you could put your hands on each other. But guess what? At the end of it, if I end up being injured, you have to take care of me. You got to pay my mortgage. You got to pay my light bill, my gas bill, my car note. So when you start thinking of it in those terms, fighting ain't worth it. We might get into a good argument. I could get into a good argument with you, but fighting ain't worth it. Because the laws are going to be pushed. Let's go.
Verse 20. And if a man smite his bondman,
I'm not saying let people just put their hands on you. But what I'm saying, amongst each other, you got to think about what we're doing.
Right.
You know, Cain.
And regardless of, say, self-defense.
Right.
And maybe you did take it too far because someone attacked you, and some people kind of switch with it. Is there some kind of judge or something?
Of course, every matter of life and death always goes before the judge. The judge will always, he's going to have to measure what happened. You know, because if somebody attacks you with a stick, or someone tries to stab you, but you reverse it on them, nah, the judge is going to look at it and say, nah, this was self-defense. You know, this person defended themselves. This person was trying to kill you. Even in America, they have to look at those things, and they're going to have to measure them. But this is talking about just a simple scrap on the streets, and no one has any weapons, and somebody swing at you, and now you go like too far. You know, like,
Somebody punch you and you didn't fall and hit the ground.
that's what I said. And that's what I said. So those things, that's why it says, he who strikes his neighbor, then you're going to have to deal with that consequence if they pass away. That's why it's not worth fighting with each other. With Israelites, it's not worth us fighting with each other. And the ones that do, you have something to pay at the end. It's called liability. You fall on someone's floor, and if you mop the floor, you didn't put any signs to say that it's a wet floor, and somebody slips and falls, guess what? You're liable for that.
Right.
Because someone got hurt on your property, on your watch. So that's how it goes. God said there's liability for all the actions that we take that's aggressive and hostile one to another. There's liability. Let's go.
Verse 20. And if a man smite his bondman or his bondwoman with a rod, and he die under his hand, he shall surely be punished.
He shall be punished. Now, what that punishment is, we don't know, but the judges will determine. Let's go.
Notwithstanding, if he continue a day or two, he shall not be punished, for he is his money.
So the bondman and the bondwoman is not the Hebrew servant.
Right.
That is a slave or
foreigner.
So a foreigner that you brought in. That's not a Hebrew servant. You're not beating a Hebrew servant like that.
No.
You're not doing that to a Hebrew. You know, but this is actually a foreigner that's a servant to your house. Now those you keep in perpetuity, but you cannot put your hands on them. And no, when you put your hands on them and you kill them, then there's a punishment that comes for that, because every life is precious before the Creator, whether it's homeborn or one that's a foreigner. And notwithstanding, if he continued day or two, then he's good. Let's go.
And if men strive together and hurt a woman with child, so that her fruit depart, and yet no harm follow, he shall be surely fined according as the woman's husband shall lay upon him, and he shall pay as the judges determine. But if any harm follow, then thou shalt give life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burning for burning, wound for wound, stripe for stripe.
So now here we go again. Two men fighting, tussling. God know that we are people that like fighting with each other. So he said, y'all start tussling. But in the tussle, there's a pregnant woman. She about 8 months pregnant. And in the tussle, you bump her, water breaks, and boom, the baby comes out. But the baby's healthy. Nothing happened to the woman. It says, now there's two schools of thought about this law. So the first one is this, you know, she has the baby. Nothing happens. The husband puts a fine on whoever bumped his wife. right? The judges say, nah, he's asking for $3 million. The baby is fine, she's fine. This is not worth $3 million. We'll award you $25,000. You should be good with that. That's for your pain and your suffering. You can't get $3 million for this. The baby is good, your wife is good, whatever. So that's the first school of thought. The second school of thought is that, this is what I've heard, that if the two men are tussling, the baby comes out before time, or if the baby dies, that the onus is not on the baby. If the baby died, the fine is just paid for the baby. But whatever follows, meaning for the woman, if the woman goes into complication and she dies, then it's the eye for eye, tooth for tooth, burning for burning, life for life. But the other school of thought is if the baby dies, even if the woman survives and the baby dies, that person, that man who did what he did, that he should be put to death because life is precious. And this is where we come into the whole abortion talk, where people say, oh, it's not a life yet. Yes, it is a life. So you can't abort babies and think that is okay. Abortions are not okay. All life is precious. It shows you in terms of the servant, and now an unborn baby that is, even through trauma, might be forced to be born, and then it's a stillbirth. The baby dies. And whatever trauma that it went through, because y'all was tussling. So life for life, burning for burning. So if the baby dies, life for life, burning for burning, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, and you lose your life. Because every life is precious before the Creator. Let's go.
And if a man smite the eye of his bondman or the eye of his bondwoman and destroy it, he shall let him go for his eye's sake. And if he smite out his bondman's tooth or his bondwoman's tooth, he shall let him go free for his tooth.
You disfigure your servant, they go free for that. Because God made us all a certain way, you have no right to disfigure someone. Let's go.
And if an ox gore a man or a woman that they die, the ox shall be surely stoned, and its flesh shall not be eaten, but the owner of the ox shall be quit.
So today we don't have oxes running around in the streets, but you got a dog, you got a pit bull. First thing people go is pit bulls, but pit bulls by nature are not what they call man eaters. Pit bulls, they'll fight each other, they'll bring down other animals, but you have to train them to be aggressive towards human. Naturally, they're not like that. But let's say like a Rottweiler or a Doberman Pinscher, any one of these other dogs, they attack a human being. You didn't know that this dog was going to do it. They kill that person, right? Then the animal is put to death. Let us go.
But if the ox was wont to go in time past, and warning have been given to its owner, and he have not kept it in, but it have killed a man or a woman, the ox shall be stoned, and its owner also shall be put to death.
Because you were warned about your dog before.
Right.
Your dog jumped the fence several times, chased people. So now when I was younger, living in Panama, we used to go through certain blocks, and there used to be certain dogs that used to run out when you on your bike, and they'll try to bite your foot or your leg. That's equivalent to the ox that's known to gore. Because if he keeps doing that, your dog keeps doing that, and he bites people, right? The next time he bites a kid, and the kid, because he got bitten, he falls off the bike, busts his head, and he dies, then you and your dog die.
Right.
Because you never kept your dog in. Your dog chases people when they walk past, when they ride by in bikes, and you never kept your dog in. So this is, once again, laws of liability. And when something that you own does something, then you're responsible for it. And you're liable for it. Let's go.
If there be laid on him a ransom that he shall give for the redemption of his life whatsoever is laid upon him, whether it have gored the son or have gored the daughter, according to this judgment shall it be done unto him.
So you better hope that the parent of that child will say, just give me some money and we could settle this. Because if that parent don't say, give me some money, then you're going to lose your life. Because you never kept that ox, that dog, whatever, you never kept it in. and it's been known to do this, and because he was known to do this, you were supposed to be responsible for it and keep it in. Let's go.
If the ox gore a bondman or a bondwoman, he shall give unto their master 30 shekels of silver, and the ox shall be stoned.
So for the bondman and for the bondwoman, it's specific as to how much you shall give. It don't say that for, other family members or anything like that. A child is more precious to you. You being a master of a house. So you're going to have to negotiate that. And you're actually at the court's mercy, and at that person who's asking for what they asking for, you at their mercy. Because you can lose your life. Let's go.
And if a man shall open a pit, or if a man shall dig a pit and not cover it, and an ox or an ass fall therein, the owner of the pit shall make it good. He shall give money unto the owner of them, and the dead beast shall be his.
That's why you see in the streets when they open up those holes, they put those big metal planks on it because they're not finished yet. So the hole is actually still open, but they put these metal planks so that no one falls in there, so that cars don't fall in there. There's actually liability for these things. That's why the city, they cover up potholes, because technically if you fall into one of those potholes and your transmission gets ripped out, they're liable for that. Because we pay taxes for them to keep that going. But most people don't have the patience to sit and wait and make the claims and all those things, right? Also, if anything happens to you, like you get shot, you get stabbed, or anything in the streets, there is this thing called crime victims or something like that. They're liable. The city is liable for you being hurt because you pay for safety and security. Those are laws and rules that we don't know about, but you pay when you pay your taxes. This is what you're paying for. So you're supposed to be secure and safe in the streets. So if something happens to you, they're really liable for it, but most people don't go through with that. Let's go.
And if one man's ox hurt another's, so that it dieth, then they shall sell the live ox and divide the price of it.
Right.
Or the dead also they shall divide.
Right.
Or if it be known that the ox was wont to go in time past, and his owner hath not kept it in, he shall surely pay ox for ox, and the dead beast shall be his own.
And the dead beast shall be his own. So that's understood. I don't need to explain that. Go to the next chapter.
One more verse. If a man steal an ox or a sheep and kill it or sell it, he shall pay 5 oxen for an ox, and 4 sheep for a sheep.
So the return back on stealing, it's a lot. So you rather not steal,
right? Because
when you steal an ox or a sheep, you got to pay like the triple and quadruple whatever that you took was. So stealing it's not worth it. Let's go.
Chapter 22, verse 1. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
If a thief be found breaking in, and be smitten so that he dieth, there shall be no blood guiltiness for him. If the sun be risen upon him, there shall be blood guiltiness for him. He shall make restitution if he have nothing. Then he shall be sold for his theft. If the theft be found in his hand alive, whether it be ox or ass or sheep, he shall pay double.
He shall pay double. You steal something, you shall pay. If it says, if a thief be found that he dieth, if a thief be found breaking in and he be smitten so that he dieth, there shall be no blood guiltiness for him. So somebody's in your house, and it's you or him. You're going to protect your family. You're going to put them down because they had no business being in your house. There's no reason for you to be in my house uninvited.
That's right.
You didn't wander in through my door because my door is locked. My alarm system is going off. That means you forced it. It's a forced entry. There's no reason for you to be in my house. So if you're in my house or on my property, because the theft could be an animal. That means people think the house just a physical place where we sleep and we stay. No, your property. Because people could be in your property stealing your animals. The animals don't live in the house, the immediate house that you live in. So if they're stealing your animals and you put them down, that's on them. You shouldn't have been on my property. So it speaks about if time goes on and you see the person, because there's 2 schools of thought to this law also. So this is like if some time go on, you see the person and you run up on them, like you're not supposed to like, oh, I found you, I know you're the one who stole in my house, and now I'm going to kill you. No. Then you're going to be guilty. Because there's judges and there's laws to govern for that. You bring him to the judges, you bring him or her to the judges, and they will determine whether or not what they have to pay, and if they cannot pay it, then they have to do some serving. You have to be sold into servitude and pay off whatever it is that you stole. But the other school of thought was, if someone comes into your house at night, then you have the right to kill them. But if you see them in the daytime, that you don't have the right to kill them, even if they're in your house, because they saying that you saw them, they saw you, they already caught. But that doesn't make sense, because when a thief get found, he going to either do damage to you or you going to do damage to them, right? Daytime, nighttime, it doesn't matter. You're going to have to defend your house. So, but that's the two schools of thought when it comes to that. Let's go.
Verse 4. If a man cause a field or a vineyard to be eaten, and shall let his beast loose, and it feed in another man's field, of the best of his own field and of the best of his own vineyard shall he make restitution.
Once again, liability. You cause your beast go through someone's field, eats up their stuff. There's going to be somebody that's going to come determine what's the best out of your field. It's going to take it and give it to the neighbor because your beast went through that field and ate up what they weren't supposed to eat up. Let's go.
If fire break out and catch in thorns, so that the shocks of corn, or the standing corn, or the field are consumed, he that kindled the fire shall surely make restitution.
So in our history, this happened in our history. Who remembers who this happened to? We just said his name in one of the examples that I spoke about earlier. Somebody was trying to get his attention. One of David's sons was trying to get his attention. Joab. Yeah, Joab, when Absalom was trying to get his attention because David didn't want him around him because he had killed his other son, Adoniah, I believe it was. Was it Adoniah? Was it Amnon? Yeah, it was Amnon. He had killed Amnon, and he kept sending messages to Joab. Joab wouldn't answer. And then he finally burnt down Joab's barley field, right? So that's an example. Absalom was supposed to replenish all that because he burned down his cousin's. He burned down his cousin's barley field. So that's an example in the Torah where we see that. Let's go.
If a man deliver unto his neighbor money or stuff to keep, and it be stolen out of the man's house, if the thief be found, he shall pay double.
So somebody delivers good to you. Hey, I'm going on a trip. Here go. I got some chain. I got some gold and stuff like that. Can you put it in your safe until I come back? Blase, blase, blah. But if it be stolen out of that man's house, if the thief be found, he shall pay double. I mean, if you find the thief, that thief shall pay double. Go ahead.
If the thief be not found, then the master of the house shall come near to God to see whether he have not put his hand into his neighbor's goods. For every matter of trespass, whether it be for ox, for ass, for sheep, for raiment, or for any manner of lost thing, whereof one saith, this is it, the cause of both parties shall come before God. He whom God shall condemn shall pay double unto his neighbor.
You hear it? So you could deliver something to your neighbor. He tell you, oh, it got stolen out of my house. But you're going to have to do an investigation.
That's right.
You're going to have to do an investigation because people get slick. Next thing you know, he stole your stuff. He makes it look like somebody broke into his house. But then when the judges get down to the bottom and say, no, you did this. Like most, they said most Brinks trucks, the heist of Brinks trucks, they say it's inside jobs. So there's always, when they go back and investigate, they always see where it comes from. It's like someone, a former employee, someone who's still working there left a door open. So they do an investigation. So this is the same thing with the Torah. They're going to do an investigation, and they're going to find out how this happened. And whoever's found guilty, they have to pay double. Because when someone entrusts something to you, they feel some type of security by you. So you should at least make them feel safe by you as a neighbor. You're supposed to live safely besides your neighbor. With your neighbor, with one another, we're supposed to live safely. That's why it speaks about messing with someone's wife or your neighbor's wife and things of this nature, because you're supposed to live secure next to someone that's doing law just like you. Let's go.
Verse 9. If a man deliver unto his neighbor an ass or an ox or a sheep or any beast, to keep and it die, or be hurt or driven away, no man seeing it, the oath of Yahweh shall be between them both, to see whether he have not put his hand unto his neighbor's goods. And the owner thereof shall accept it, and he shall not make restitution.
So you deliver an ox, animal, anything like that, and the animal dies, is torn by whatever it might have happened. You gotta swear before the Creator and say, I didn't put my hands on your stuff, on your animal or whatever, and this is how we resolve that. Let's go.
But if it be stolen from him, he shall make restitution unto the owner thereof. If it be torn in pieces, let him bring it for witness. He shall not make good that which was torn.
If it's stolen from him, that's the reason why I left it with you. So it could be safeguarded. So now you got to make restitution. But if it says, what's the other part? He shall make restitution. If it be torn, if the animal is torn up, another animal came and ate it, then you bring the carcass of the dead animal and be like, hey, this is what happened. I couldn't prevent that. You know? Let's go.
And if a man borrow aught of his neighbor, and it be hurt or die, the owner thereof not being with it, he shall surely make restitution.
So we talking in terms of beast of burden. So, man, I need your ox so I could till my ground. Today, we don't got ox. So, hey, man, can I borrow your van? Goes back to liability. Can I borrow your van so I can make this move? You borrow the person's van, you're making the move, and in the process of making the move, the engine blows. The transmission blows. Guess who's responsible for that? You are. Because you borrowed the van, and now it just so happened that when you borrowed it, guess what? The transmission start acting up. Guess what? You got to pay for that. That's what the law is saying. Let's go.
If the owner thereof be with it, he shall not make it good.
But if you say, hey, brother Amar, can you come with me? Can you bring your pickup, man? I got to make a move. Can you help me? And you come with it. Yeah, man, come on. Chief Uzziel, go with you, make that move. We start packing stuff up. And while you driving, the transmission starts slipping. It's on you, brother Amar. You was just helping me out. That's not my liability. Let's go.
If the owner thereof be with it, he shall not make it good. If it be a hireling, he loseth his hire.
If it be a hireling, now if I said, brother Amar, can I rent out your truck? Let me give you $400 because I got to make this move. And the transmission and the engine start slipping, guess what? I rented it. So whatever happens, hey, brother Amar, the transmission started slipping. But I paid for that. Because when you see, today they rob us. When we go rent cars, when you go to these rental places, so once you go rent a car, the car already has insurance. Every rental, no car can be on the road without insurance. So the car already has insurance, but when you go there, what they tell you? Do you want to add more insurance to it? Why do I want to add more insurance to it when I'm already renting the car out and it has insurance? That means anybody who drives that car should be covered. But this is how they get us, right? But when it comes to law, it's just clear cut. If he hired it, if I rented it from you, then that means if it breaks down, then that's on the owner.
That's it.
Because that's why I rented it out for. To use it, to put wear and tear on it, and if it breaks down, then it's on the owner. Let's go.
And if a man entice a virgin that is not betrothed and lie with her, he shall surely pay a dowry for her to be his wife. If her father utterly refuse to give her unto him, he shall pay money according to the dowry of virgins.
It says the word is like beguile, entice. The onus is on the man because he, what they call today G or game. You game a girl out of her virginity, and when her father finds out, then that man has to pay the dowry of a virgin. This is not rape. This is consensual, but she got basically talked out of it. And you have to pay the dowry of a virgin. And if the father does not, the father could say, you're going to keep her. But in some instances, the father be like, no, you can't have my daughter. So you still have to pay that dowry of a virgin. Let's go. Which I believe is like 50 shekels of silver. Let's go.
Thou shalt not suffer a sorceress to live.
All them people that I could make you a rose bath, or just bring me a strand of his hair, and I could have him, locked in. All them people that like doing all that stuff that you find in Louisiana and in the Caribbean and certain islands, all them people that do all that funny stuff, they should be put to death. Let's go.
Whosoever lieth with the beast shall surely be put to death.
There's only 4 states in the United States that have not abolished bestiality. I believe New Mexico, Wyoming, West Virginia, and there's one more, Hawaii. 4 states where bestiality technically is still legal. So bestiality is when man or woman lie down with an animal and have sexual cohabitation with an animal. This is nasty. This is disgusting. So in the law it says that the person and the animal shall both be put to death. But the animal didn't ask for that. You put the animal through that confusion. Let's go.
He that sacrifices unto the God, save unto Yahweh only, shall be utterly destroyed.
Shall utterly be destroyed. You sacrifice to any other God besides Jehovah, you shall be put to death. Let's go.
And the stranger thou shalt not wrong, neither shalt thou oppress him. For you were strangers in the land of Egypt. You shall not afflict any widow or fatherless child. If thou afflict them in any wise, or if they cry at all unto me, I will surely hear their cry. My wrath shall wax hot, and I will kill you with the sword. And your wives shall be widows, and your children fatherless.
A stranger thou shalt not wrong, neither shalt thou oppress him, for ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. We know how it feels to be a stranger. So when strangers come in the midst of us, guess what? We need to make them feel comfortable, because we know what it feels like to be a stranger. We were in Egypt for all them years. It says, you shall not afflict any widow or fatherless child. You have a widow with some fatherless children living next to you, and you're oppressing them. That means that you talk down to the woman. You are bitter towards the kids. You don't have an understanding heart. When you see people like that, you're supposed to give a helping hand.
Mm-hmm.
It says, be a father to the fatherless. When you see those children and you about ready to go into a trip or whatever, you know what? Next week I'm going to do this. If you would allow me, let me take the kids and we could all go into. You have to be like this, because they don't have anyone that's going to protect them, because the father is the symbol of protection. So now you're supposed to, sometimes it seems like it's a lot, but our job never ends as Israel. So you're supposed to look out for the fatherless and the widow. You're supposed to make sure that they're all right and not overlook them and not be evil to them. This is what this law is saying. Let's go.
Verse 24.
And it says, because if you act wicked and evil towards them, that the Most High God is going to make your wife a widow, and he's going to make he's going to make your children fatherless, because the Most High God considers everyone. You remember, like a lot of us grew up in the hood without fathers. Some of our fathers necessarily weren't dead, some were, but there was always like a father in the neighborhood that looked out for everyone, taught you how to play baseball, football, basketball, took you out to Bear Mountain, took you to camping trips, took you to barbecues. Like, that's the way we're supposed to be. When the kids don't have fathers, we're supposed to look out for the ones that don't have fathers. That's the way we're supposed to be. Let's go.
If thou lend money to any of my people, even to the poor with thee, thou shalt not be to him as a creditor, neither shall you lay upon him interest.
So if I lend you $50, all I should be expecting back is $50, not $75.
Right.
Not a 50% interest on it. Nah. All I'm expecting back is $50. It says with brothers, you're not supposed to lend upon interest. Say you do that with strangers. You don't do that with one another. Let's go.
If thou at all take thy neighbor's garment to pledge, thou shalt restore it unto him by that the sun thou shalt restore it unto him by that the sun goeth down. For that is his only covering. It is his garment for his skin. Wherein shall he sleep? And it shall come to pass when he crieth unto me that I will hear, for I am gracious.
We don't understand that, but that's basically, we were coming out of Egypt. Most of us didn't have a lot of clothing. So it's saying like, hey, if someone can pawn their garment to you and you hold it overnight, what they going to have for covering to sleep when it gets cold? Right? So give it back and deal with your brother accordingly. Let's go. Or your sister. Let's go.
Thou shalt not revile God, nor curse a ruler of thy people.
Don't belittle God. Don't curse God. Don't look down upon God. That's our creator. It says, and the other,
Nor curse a ruler of thy
nor
people.
curse the ruler of thy people. Be very careful how you talk about leadership. It actually said that I believe a word that they use is like the Nasi, like the Nasi, which is like a head or a prince. It says, be careful how you talk about them, because they have to make decisions that you wouldn't even think about making, that are difficult. And God put them in that position. So it's easy to criticize someone behind their back, but you don't have enough courage to go tell someone, hey, do you think that this is how we should be doing it? And can we resolve it this way? That's actually the way that you should be doing things. Let's go.
Thou shalt not delay to offer of the fullness of thy harvest, and of the outflow of thy presses. The firstborn of thy sons shalt thou give unto me. Likewise shalt thou do with thine oxen and with thy sheep. 7 days it shall be with its dam, and on the 8th day thou shalt give it me. Ye shall be holy men unto me. Therefore ye shall not eat any flesh that is torn of beasts in the field. Ye shall cast it to the dogs.
You cast it to the dogs. So we don't eat roadkill. We don't eat animals that are torn by beasts. We don't do any of that. It say cast that to the dog. It said the best of everything you have, you give to God. So don't bring to the camp, don't bring a microwave that's been sitting in your house for 3 days that's a roach box. Don't bring to the camp, your broken down table that is leaning and wobbly. Don't bring that to the camp. That's not what you present to the Creator. You present the best to the Creator. That's what it's telling you. Go to the next chapter.
Chapter 23. Thou shalt not utter a false report. Put not thy hand with the wicked to be an unrighteous witness. Thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil.
Thou shalt not utter a false report. You didn't see it. You uttering something. You're repeating what someone else said. You don't know if it's true. You're just repeating it, and it's false. Don't utter a false report. Leave that alone, because if you didn't see it, you're not a witness to it. All you're going by is what someone told you. It says, put not thy hand with the wicked to be an unrighteous witness. That means we're going to get together. We're going to witness against this person. And then it's like the instance of with Jezebel and her husband Ahab. And they wanted whose field? Nabal's field. And she got all the elders together to be unrighteous witnesses, to say, oh, he cursed the king. You know what I mean? And then they killed him, and they took his field from him. That's what it's talking about. So because you have power, you could just do what you want to people. God said he's not going for that. Let's go.
Neither shalt thou bear witness in the cause to turn aside after a multitude to pervert justice. Neither shalt thou favor a poor man in his cause.
So, neither shalt thou bear witness in a cause to turn aside after a multitude to pervert justice. Because the multitude is going with what's wrong. You join in the multitude, but the right way is this way. It says don't do that. It says, neither shalt thou favor a poor man in his cause. If he's poor, if he's rich, if he's wrong, guess what? He's wrong. If she's a male or female, if they're wrong, they're wrong. So you could be poor as dirt, but you stole. Guess what? You stole. You wrong. Let's go.
If thou meet thy enemy's ox or his ass going astray, thou shalt surely bring it back to him again.
Say your enemy. So we have enemies in the midst of us? God understands that all of us are not going to get along and see eye to eye. So you're going to have people you don't see eye to eye with, but guess what? If they stuck on the FDR drive, and it's that person you do not like, Cain.
But is that just for us as Israel, or is it for those who don't know that? So your neighbor that lives on 12 or 15 you?
I think this law is for Israel.
They are Israel.
I get what you're saying. But you know, that'll be something that's.
I say it's for Israel.
Yeah, that's something to take into consideration. But I would definitely start with us because that's a test to ourselves. You know, to ourselves, that's a test. Like, man, I don't like that brother. I don't like that sister. You know, you see them in the congregation. Y'all walk past each other. You do all that. You don't talk to each other. You walk past each other. Sometimes it almost feel like you're going to bump each other. Mm-hmm. God said, if you see that person stranded on the side of the road and they'll have no way of getting that car off the side of the road and you got AAA, much as it pains you to do it, get out. You okay? I'm okay. What's wrong? The engine seized. I got AAA. Because that might spark something. Be like, they look at each other, start looking at each other differently. Be like, man, he helped me when I needed it the most. Let's go.
Verse 5. If thou see the ass of him that hateth thee lie under his burden, thou shalt forbid to pass by him, thou shalt surely release it with him.
Same type of law. Let's go.
Thou shalt not rest the judgment of thy poor in his cause. Keep thee far from a false matter, and the innocent and righteous slay thou not.
Meaning resting the judgment of the poor, like you elongate it, because he's right, but he don't got money to really defend himself. But you know he's right. But the person who he's going against is powerful, and you're stretching it out. You're trying to delay it. Give him his due when you know that the judgment is in his favor or in her favor. That's what it's saying. It goes on and say, keep thee far from a false matter. When you know it's false, keep far away from it. And the innocent and righteous slay thou not, for I will not justify the wicked, which they do in this country. There have been a lot of people that were in death row that died. There have been some states that have had to stay executions because they've put to death so many wrongful people.
That's right.
Because why? When the DNA technology, they began to test, they began to go back into the data bank and test and realize that they put people to death that were not guilty. And that they got so many people on death row that are not guilty. So we can't do that. Let's go.
And thou shalt take no gift, for a gift blindeth them that have sight, and perverteth the words of the righteous.
If you are in a position of judgment, forget taking them gifts, because a gift doth blind our eyes. Let's go.
And the stranger shalt thou not oppress. For ye know the heart of a stranger, seeing ye were strangers in the land of Egypt.
Don't oppress a stranger, right? Because you were a stranger in the land of Egypt. But this stranger thing is funny, right? Because a lot of times people come in the midst of you and they have these preconceived notions of what you are, what we are, how we act, or whatever. You have people that are Israelites, but might not necessarily look like what we think is an Israelite. Give you an example. Patrick Mahomes, right? His Pops is straight up brother. Pops, his mother is a blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman. Patrick Mahomes, the way he looked. Now, he's got a white wife. Them children come out looking more and more Caucasian. But if you go back into the lineage, they Israel. Right? They're not strangers. They're Israel. So when they come in the midst of you, they might feel a little bit left out, but that's their own preconceived notions or whatever, because we're supposed to, as Israel, treat them as Israel. But a lot of times people come in the midst of you and they have these preconceived notions of, people treating me this way, people treating me that way, and it be just you. People go out of their way to treat you nice, to make sure you are right and you don't feel left out. But it be you. It be your own mind that be playing tricks on you, and you try to put everything, you try to make up everything in the book to say that they treating me unfairly, when in all truth, they're treating you, they bending over, like trying to please you and try to make sure that everything is okay. Stop it. I know you want to give a big pause right there. Let's go.
In 6 years thou shalt sow thy land and gather in the increase thereof. But the 7th year thou shalt let it rest and lie fallow, that the poor of thy people may eat. And what they leave, the beasts of the field shall eat. In like manner thou shalt deal with thy vineyard and with thy olive yard. 6 days thou shalt do thy work, but on the 7th day thou shalt rest, that thine ox and thine ass may have rest, and the son of thy handmaid and the stranger may be refreshed. In all things that I have said unto you, take heed, and make no mention of the name of other gods, neither let it be heard out of thy mouth.
So now when we get to the land, like I told you earlier, 6 years, you work the land. The 7th year, you let it lay fallow, and you let the beasts, the wild animals, you let the poor, the needy, let them eat. Because the earth is the Lord, the world and they that dwell therein, and the fullness thereof. God made it for all the people. So the 7th year, you get a vacation. The land gets a vacation. And this is one of the main reasons why we were spewed out of the land, because we did not allow the land to observe her Sabbath. That's one of the main reasons why God said he threw us out the land, because we didn't allow the land to rest. So it speaks about the 7th day. When the 7th day comes, everything ceases. Your servants don't work. Your animals don't work. You allow everything to rest. And this is what this day is. We have holy convocations, and we do this because we're not in our land. But if we lived in our land, guess what? All of this will be part of our everyday laws. Like, we know not to take a red light. We know not to jump the turnstile. This is how this law will be for us. So on Shabbat, all we will be doing is praising, jamming, dancing, giving glory to the Most High God. We wouldn't need to have to do this because we would already know this. It will be our everyday thing. Let's go.
Verse 14. 3 times thou shalt keep a feast unto me in the year. The feast of unleavened bread shalt thou keep. 7 days thou shalt eat unleavened bread, as I commanded thee at the time appointed in the month Aviv. For in it thou camest out from Egypt, and then shall appear before me empty. And the feast of harvest, the first fruits of thy labors, which thou sowest in the field. And the feast of ingathering at the end of the year, when thou gatherest in thy labors out of the field. 3 times in the year all thy male shall appear before Jehovah God.
3 times in the year all the males shall appear. So we know those 3 feasts. During Pesach, or the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the Feast of Weeks, which is Shavuot, and Sukkot. 3 times, don't appear empty before God. That's nice and simple. Let's go.
Thou shalt not offer the blood of my sacrifice with leavened bread. Neither shall the fat of my feast remain all night until the morning.
So anything we sacrifice to God that has to do with bread, that's why when we see in the tabernacle and in the temple, the table of showbread is unleavened bread. We don't present anything to God that's leavened. He don't want any leaven, any yeast in his offering. Let's go.
The choicest first fruits of thy land thou shalt bring into the house of Jehovah thy God. Thou shalt not see the kid in its mother's milk.
Thou shalt not see the kid in his mother's milk. Meaning, back then there was a custom that was barbaric. They would take the goat's milk, and then they would take the kid or the calf or whatever it, that lamb or whatever it was, and they will cook it in his mother's milk. That's cruelty. But today, this European has taken it, to another level, and they separate dairy from basar. So what they do is, wherever they sell dairy products, they don't have no basar. Or wherever they sell basar, they don't have no dairy products. But that's not what God is talking about. It doesn't say you can't have a cheeseburger.
Right.
It doesn't say that if you have a turkey bun and you putting cow cheese on it, that you can't have it. So they took the law and tried to expand on it and become over righteous to where you're breaking it's like you're adding to God's law, and you're kind of like ostracizing people, or you're coming down on people for doing nothing wrong. But you're added to God's law. Nowhere does it say you can't have a cheeseburger. All it says is don't seed a kid in what? His mother's milk. That's all it says. Let's go.
Behold, I send an angel before thee to keep thee by the way, and to bring thee into the place which I have prepared. Take heed of him and hearken unto his voice. Be not rebellious against him, for he will not pardon your transgression, for my name is in him. But if thou shalt indeed hearken unto his voice and do all that I speak, then I will be an enemy unto thy enemies and an adversary unto thy adversaries. For my angel shall go before thee and bring thee into the and bring thee in unto the Amorite and the Hittite and the Perizzite and the Canaanite and the Hivite and the Jebusite, and I will cut them off.
So even when I think that angel was when Joshua, when he came up on Jericho. Remember, Joshua was up in the mountain, and the man appeared to him, and he said, "So are you on our side, or you on the adversary side?" He said, "I be the captain of the host of the Lord." Mm-hmm. He said, "Take off your sandal." He said, "Because the way you standing on, that's holy ground." And he bowed down. Mm-hmm. Because now he came, because we going into the land. It says, now I'm going to go in there and show you what God was talking about. Right. So there's always an angel that's surrounding us. There's always an unseen entity that God sends to protect us as a people. Especially those of us who are doing that which is right.
Amen.
Let's go.
Thou shalt not bow down to their gods, nor serve them, nor do after their doings. But thou shalt utterly overthrow them and break in pieces their pillars. And ye shall serve Yahweh your God, and he will bless thy bread and thy water. And I will take sickness away from the midst of thee. None shall miscarry nor be barren in thy land. The number of thy days I will fulfill. I will send my terror before thee, and will discomfort all the people to whom thou shalt come. And I will make all thy enemies turn their backs unto thee. And I will send the hornet before thee, which shall drive out the Hivite and the Canaanite and the Hittite from before thee. Mm-hmm. I will not drive them out from before thee in 1 year, lest the land become desolate, and the beasts of the field multiply against thee. By little and little I will drive them out from before thee, until thou be increased and inherit the land. And I will set thy border from the Red Sea even unto the sea of the Philistines, and from the wilderness unto the river. For I will deliver the inhabitants of the land into your hand, and thou shalt drive them out before thee. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor with their gods. They shall not dwell in thy land, lest they make thee sin against me. But thou wilt serve their gods, for they will be a snare unto thee.
So don't make any covenants with them or with their gods. Mm-hmm. God is very adamant, because we're going into this land. Now, we're going to spend some time in that wilderness, but the Most High is adamant, right? Because the actual Canaanites have a pantheon of gods. Mm-hmm. You know who the chief god of the Canaanites was? Take a wild guess. What was his name? Absolutely, El. That was their chief god. And his consort was Asherah, Astarte. That's why when the Most High God, he begins to command us, he said, don't build no Asherah poles next to my altar. Because this was part of their tradition. The altars that they built, they usually built them between trees, and then they carved out the image of Asherah in the trees, because the offering was going up to quote unquote El, and Asherah was his consort. Mm. Right. So this is what they did. So that's why the argument of using the word God or not or whatever, I don't get into that argument, because when you go back into the history of Canaanites, we're using a lot of those words that they use, because our language is like a Canaanite language. We adopted that originally. So a lot of the words are similar. El, Baal. We use a lot of those words. And sometimes we get too deep into that to where we like, oh, I'm not going to use this word, I'm not going to use that word. But in reality, when we dig deep into the history, we see a lot of things that we probably should not, that we think we shouldn't be using, but it's part of our everyday vocabularies and our names and everything else that we do. So we're not going to read chapter 24. Torah, thanking the Most High God once again. The chapter 24 doesn't really have any laws, I believe. It's just telling Moses to get ready to come up to the mountain with the elders and get to a certain point with Joshua, and this is when Moses is going to receive the tablet, the commandments, and then after that it's a whole nother thing with the golden calf and all of that. So thank you, the creator of heaven and earth, once again for life, food, clothing, and shelter, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Thank you all for listening, and I pray that the Most High God will bless us all. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
This song will rise.